Perhaps you're a producer looking to make the switch from Logic to Ableton, or vice versa. Or maybe you're new to music production and you're not sure which one is right for you. In the past couple of months, both Apple and Ableton have released new versions of their software, which means a bunch of new features as they race to compete for best DAW. I'm going to start off by saying one is not better than the other. It just depends on what feels best to you and what you might be looking to use it for. But I'll get into more detail about the specifics throughout and at the end of the video. Now, regardless of whether you're choosing Logic, Ableton, Cubase, Pro Tools, or FL Studio, what you're going to absolutely need is a place to store and share your files. Boombox is a completely free platform which allows you to do just that. You can upload and securely store your files just like any other storage platform. You can also leave timestamp feedback in the form of text and voice notes, as well as being able to quickly create playlists and set up an artist profile, which in the very near future will allow you to put your services up for hire. So now you have all your DAW projects, audio and MIDI files, feedback, messages, and your music portfolio in one place. Sign up today and get 4 GB for free. Or if you're getting really serious, 200 GB for the price of a cup of coffee. I want to start by looking at Ableton's new user interface. So it feels cleaner, more concise, the colors are a bit brighter, and generally like softer edges in some places. I'm not sure without zooming in if that's true, but it feels somewhat refined. Not massively different, but a bit more pleasing to the eye. Now, if I go to the settings panel and then over to themes and colors, something that I like to keep switched on is the high contrast, which just makes everything pop out of the screen a little bit more and makes it less 2D and more 3D. When it comes to the appearance, I like follow systems. So light is great during the daytime where there might be other bright lights, which makes it much easier to see the screen, and then it will switch to dark in the evening when you don't want that bright white light in your face. I do also really like this 24 karat dark theme, which gives the white elements this orange glow. When it comes to Logic, you don't really have that capability. It really is this color the whole time. However, if I go to Logic, settings, view, and then head over to tracks, the only change I can make is going from dark to bright, which looks terrible, as you can see. There is also a custom version where I can adjust the slider, but that isn't much better. I want the whole thing to become bright, not just the background. As far as I know, this is uneditable unless you download a third-party skin, but it would be nice to see Apple add customizable features when it comes to the appearance of the DAW. So, Ableton 1, Logic 0. One of the new big things in Ableton 12 that everyone is very excited about are the new view functions. So now you can have your plugins and effects showing, and your audio clip or MIDI, and the mixer at the same time. Now, I don't know why you would want all of these open at the same time. This looks incredibly messy. My guess is that most people these days work from a laptop, so unless you've got a massive screen, having all three up at the same time is going to be a bit of a nuisance. You can open the audio/MIDI and effects window simultaneously by holding Option and then clicking, but personally what I've done in the past is just have one open and then press Shift Tab to switch between the two. But something that I couldn't find, and maybe you could let me know in the comments down below if you do know this, is a shortcut to open the mixer window. It seems that the only way right now to open this is by clicking on it. Now, although I like that they've added the ability to look at the mixer whilst in the arrangement view, I still think that there are some issues with the mixer. It feels messy. I don't like the way the text is spaced out. And my main issue with it is when you add another return track, it keeps adding one of these dials. So the more you add, the more of these dials it adds, and they seem to take up quite a lot of space. I also wish that it would show the value as I'm increasing or decreasing this parameter. I know that it says it in the bottom left-hand corner over here, and although this requires a small amount of effort for me to look at the bottom left-hand corner, I would like not to be able to have to strafe my gaze away from what I'm doing. In the latest Logic update, as far as I'm aware, nothing has changed when it comes to the windows that I just showed you in Ableton. X is for the mixer, and this shows both the audio effects and instrument and the mixer in one go. Personally, I've always felt that this looks and feels a lot cleaner and more concise. And honestly, maybe it's something to do with the design of the fader, but more like a real mixing desk or console, which adds to the experience. When I want to open the piano roll to look at MIDI, I just press P. And if I want to look at the audio editor, I press E. Now, those concise per function shortcuts make my life a lot easier, and I would like to see more of this implemented into Ableton. Having to press Shift and Tab is not that bad, but it would be nice just to be able to press one button for each section, so I can pull up exactly what it is that I need. So when it comes to the mixer, piano roll, and clip view, I do think that Logic has the upper hand here. Now, quick side note, as I'm just looking and hoping that Ableton are watching right now, why is this so big? I know that there are a lot of tracks in the submix, but I don't need the grouped channel to be so big. The idea behind track stacking or grouping is to make everything smaller and more concise. Now, I cannot make this any smaller than that, which seems to make little to no sense, especially because the majority of producers are working from a laptop, and even if they weren't, this is still such a waste of screen real estate. Now in Logic, regardless of how many track stacks you have set up, it's always the same size. It's always the size of a regular channel. However, in Logic, you can only track stack twice, whereas in Ableton you can group infinitely. Track stacking is what it's called in Logic, grouping is what it's called in Ableton. I would like to see the ability to add more track stacks within track stacks added to Logic. But Ableton, this has got to go. Ableton 12 has got a feature which I think is a real game changer, and I'm surprised Apple didn't get to earlier, which is the find similar sounds. So when you load up your samples, you can right click on them and go to show similar files. Or you click on this little wave with the line button here, and then boom, it will automatically try and find sounds that are similar to the sample that you selected. And it does a pretty good job of doing so. In order to pull up external samples in Logic, you have to go over here to the browser button on the right-hand side, and then you can scroll through your samples, again, just using the directional pad like you would in Ableton. But it doesn't keep the waveform down there, so you can't see the shape of the waveform if that's something you like. And it definitely doesn't have that show similar files function, which is incredible. Another really cool thing about Ableton, which isn't new to 12, is that when you play loops in a session, it will automatically warp them to match the tempo of your project. Logic doesn't, or seems to really struggle to do this, which can make the process of dragging in loops or samples a little bit longer and annoying. So a big win for Ableton here. Additionally, if you use the drum rack in Ableton to load up your samples, you can also use the show similar files function within the rack. So I've selected my sample and clicking on the show similar files, and then I can actually lock the samples that I like and then flick through other options for the ones that are unlocked. And this makes finding your sound, sampling, and creativity much faster, which is ultimately what you want when you're producing music. If you're already a Logic user, it does have some cool features in this browser window, but I've already covered those in my Logic tips and tricks video up here, so go check that out. When it comes to creating melodies, creativity is king. Not all of us have had the luxury of classical training, and I would go as far to say that most producers, including myself these days, rely on MIDI and using our ears in order to create the best melodies, chords, bass lines, and leads possible. But being limited by our musical ability is not very fun. Now, Ableton has implemented some brand new MIDI features, which I absolutely love. Let's check them out. So here I've created a C minor 7th chord. In the MIDI window, you've got two new areas, the transformative tool and the generative tool. Let's start with the transformative tool. So we can turn these chords into an arpeggiation, we can connect, ornament, quantize, recombine, span, strum, and time warp. I'm not going to go into loads of detail with these, but let me show you my favorites. Strum, which is actually a feature known as flam in Logic, essentially plays them like you would strum a guitar. You'll notice here as I adjust the high, the MIDI notes start to become more delayed. I can then also increase or decrease the tension depending on how I want the strum to sound. Now on arpeggiate, there might be some parameters which look familiar to you. So we've got the rate, the distance, the amount of steps, the style. Let's go for converge. Let's do rate 16th. Let's bring that gate down and take a listen. And then if I want to go back to my original chords, all I have to do is press transform again. When it comes to drums, the generative tool Rhythm helps you come up with new ideas really quickly. Have a listen to the hats. They're okay, but nothing special. Now from here, I can increase the steps, the density, the step duration, and different patterns within that to quickly help create variation and something new. And if I decrease the split percentage, it adds variety to the note length. There's a lot to dive into when it comes to the transformative and generative tools, but I just wanted to give you a brief overview and compare it to Logic. Now, in comparison, the Logic piano roll is very basic. Nothing new here. You're able to scale quantize, which you're also able to do in Ableton, which allows you essentially just to have your notes play within your desired key. So for example, I could have C minor, and I can change basic functions such as velocity, swing, and quantize. So when it comes to MIDI features, Ableton is definitely a step ahead. Ableton 12 does have a new synthesizer called Meld. It's a twin oscillator synthesizer designed to create incredible harmonic textures and atonal soundscapes. It's got a very exciting sound, full of modulation and movement, which does lend itself to the contemporary sound of now. Logic, on the other hand, has added something called sample alchemy, where you can drag in an audio file and then it uses granular, additive, and spectral synthesis to modulate and play back the sound. Both Sample Alchemy and Meld open up a realm of possibility when it comes to sound design and creating those unique textures that your production might need. Ableton has added a really cool distortion effect called Raw, which is 3 separate distortion stages with multi-band configurations and a built-in compressor and feedback routing. But rather than me telling you what it does, let me show you how it sounds. Logic has something called Beat Breaker, which is not similar, but is an almost direct copy of the famous Shaperbox plugin by Cable Guys that allows you to create cool, gated, chopped up, and patterned effects from your sounds and loops. Additionally, in Logic, they have also released the Logic Mastering AI and their brand new pitch correction software. So I have also done full tutorials on both the mastering and the pitch correction software, so check out the link above. Ableton has added a waveform zoom as well. So in the bottom right-hand corner here, you can actually turn this on and off and then increase and decrease the size of the waveform without affecting the clip gain. Logic has had this for quite some time. It's in the top right-hand corner. You can increase and decrease the size of the waveform there as well, but it's nice to see it being added to Ableton. And that's pretty much it. If you want more details about Logic versus Ableton, then it's worth checking out this video here that I did last year, which gives a more general overview. This video is about the newer features and what they've added. After seeing and reviewing these changes on both DAWs, I will go as far to say this. I do think that Ableton is somewhat a better production tool. It tends to be a little bit more intuitive. Now, personally, I've always found Logic better for recording and editing vocals. And now with its updated pitch correction and mastering AI, it does feel like it's lending itself a little bit more to the engineering world. Having said that though, with Sample Alchemy and the Beat Breaker, there's still a lot there when it comes to production. It really comes down to what you feel has the best tools for you. And if I was starting out again, I would demo each one for 30 days and see which one you get on better with. Then stick to one and go for it. Alternatively, if you're thinking of making the switch from one to the other, maybe ask yourself why you're making the switch. Is it just because someone told you you should? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which DAW you use, it's all about how well you know it. Big thanks to Boombox for making this YouTube channel happen and bringing the music community all these awesome tutorials on music production, audio engineering, and so much more. Make sure to go and sign up for free with the link in the description below, and I'll see you very soon. It's been a pleasure as always. I'm Fabio from Noise, and this is Boombox, the home of collaboration. Peace!